Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the financial mysteries of publicly traded companies. This time, we're diving into Seaport Entertainment Group's latest quarterly report. Get ready, because this SEC filing is a bit like trying to find a specific concert ticket in a crowded arena, but don't worry, we'll find the hits. Before we jump in, if you like getting these kinds of crystal clear breakdowns of dense financial documents, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And hey, we've got a fantastic community over on our Discord server, linked below in the description, where we break down even more complex stuff. Alright, let's kick things off with a look at where Seaport Entertainment Group stands on the balance sheet, a snapshot of what they own and what they owe. As of June 2025, their total assets were around $717 million, a dip from about $74.3 million at the end of last year. This decrease seems to be mainly from less cash on hand. On the flip side, their liabilities also went down a bit, mainly from paying down some mortgages. Now let's get to the juicy part, the income statement. This shows us how much money they made and spent. For the first 3 months of 2025, their total revenue jumped up to about $39.8 million, a good increase from $33.7 million a year prior. That's a solid 18% bump. But hold on, their expenses actually went down by 6%. So more revenue with fewer expenses, that sounds like a win, right? Here's where things get a bit more complex. Even though revenue is up, they are still reporting a loss. For the first 3 months of 2025, the net loss attributable to common stockholders was about $14.8 million. That's a big improvement, seems to be a significant drop in general and administrative expenses, down almost half, and also a big swing from losing money on other companies they invest in to making money. Let's talk about cash. Cash flow from operations, which is the money generated from their main business activities, showed they used $21.2 million in the first 6 months of 2025, compared to using $39.1 million in the same period last year. So they're using less cash to run the business. Investing activities also used less cash, going from about $33 million down to $18.7 million, mainly because some of their investments are now being consolidated, meaning they own them outright now. This next part is interesting, especially because Seaport Entertainment used to be part of Howard Hughes Holdings, or HHH. Before they split up, HHH was basically footing the bill. Now that they're on their own, it's a different story. The report mentions Net Parent Investment Member, which basically tracks money coming from or going to the former parent company. For the first half of 2024, which was right around the time of the split, they received $74.8 million in this net investment. Now in 2025, that number is zero, as expected, because they are a standalone company. Let's zoom into their different business areas. Their hospitality segment, which includes restaurants and entertainment venues, saw a big jump in revenue, up 68% to $15.2 million in the first quarter of 2025 compared to last year. But this boost seems to be heavily influenced by them now fully owning the Tin Building by Jan Georgia, which they previously only partially owned. This also means their costs in this area went up even more by 1/4 of 2025 compared to last year, but this boost seems to be heavily influenced by them now fully owning the Tin Building by Jean George, which they previously only partially owned. This also means their costs in this area went up even more by 103%, which makes sense since they now have to pay for everything, not just their share. In their entertainment segment, which covers things like baseball teams and concerts, revenue grew by 16% to almost $20 million in the first quarter. This is good news, driven by more concerts at their Pier 17 venue. Costs in this segment also rose, but at a much slower pace, about 3%, which is a much healthier trend than in hospitality. Now, their landlord operations segment, which is all about renting out space, actually saw a decrease in rental revenue by 38% in the first quarter, down to $4.2 million. This seems a bit concerning, but the report mentions they're seeing better rent escalations and some new leases. However, their operating costs in this segment dropped quite a bit too, by 26%, mainly due to lower payroll and marketing spending. Looking at adjusted EBITDA, a measure of profitability before some big expenses, the hospitality segment is still losing money with a loss of $7.3 million in the first quarter. This is better than last year's loss of $8.7 million, but they're still bleeding cash here. The entertainment segment, on the other hand, is doing well, showing a profit of $4.8 million, improving from a loss of $1.2 million, improving from a loss of $1.2 million last year. When we look at cash flow from financing activities, it's a dramatic shift. In the first 6 months of 2024, they had a massive $73.9 million coming in, mainly from HH to support them. But for the same period in 2025, they only show a cash use of $2.5 million. This just highlights the reality of being a standalone company. They no longer have that big parent company safety net. Now, about the future. Like many companies, Seaport Entertainment is required to include a cautionary statement about forward-looking statements. These are basically predictions about what might happen. They mention risks like economic downturns, competition, and even weather. One of their key challenges is operating as a standalone company after separating from HHH. They're also vulnerable to changes in consumer spending and their specific market conditions in New York City and Las Vegas. On a final note, as of August 2025, they had about 12.7 million shares of common stock outstanding. Interestingly, they also mention a rights offering that brought in about $66.8 million last October, which they're still using for general operations. So what's my take on Seaport Entertainment Group after looking at this filing? On the positive side, they're growing their revenue in entertainment and have improved their overall loss compared to last year. The consolidation of their tin building investment means they're taking more direct control, which could be good for long-term strategy, though it also means they take on all the associated costs. The big concern is the hospitality segment, which is still losing a lot of money. They are also heavily reliant on real estate, which can be very sensitive to economic ups and downs. While they are starting to operate independently, they've got a lot of ground to cover to become consistently profitable across all segments. They need to turn that hospitality segment, which is still losing a lot of money. They are also heavily reliant on real estate, which can be very sensitive to economic ups and downs. While they are starting to operate independently, they've got a lot of ground to cover to become consistently profitable across all segments. They need to turn that hospitality segment, which is still losing a lot of money. They're also heavily reliant on real estate, which can be very sensitive to economic ups and downs. Alright, that's our deep dive into Seaport Entertainment Group's latest report. What do you think about these numbers and the company's direction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this breakdown helps shed some light on their financials, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe for more corporate investigations. Also, join us on our Discord server, linked in the description, to keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.